Hello, everybody. Apparently, we do have a government official whose exclusive responsibility it is to pander to immigrants. Her name is Anette Widmann-Mauz, and her title is Integration Commissioner. This week, she came out to say that she is putting into practice the first phase of the National Action Plan for Integration. What raised some eyebrows is that it includes measurements that are conducted in the countries of origins before people even come. And that includes language classes and, introducing people to habits like giving the handshake to women and so forth. I will read out the steps that are supposed in the first phase of that said action plan. The first line reads that there must be an information campaign. If you saw my previous videos, we have a language quirk. I'm just mentioning that again and again. We enumerate synonyms for no reason at all. So there is an information campaign. Then the second one is strategies to woo professional specialists. I will come to that topic in a moment again. Then there is a pre-integration offering in the countries of origin. And the next step is the mentioned language classes. And the last one would be migration and development cooperation with actors in these diverse countries. This was mentioned during the press conference, and the speaker of the Chancellor, Mr. Stefan Seibert, has said they want to inform people how important the language is, and also at the same time we don't want that people come full of false hopes. That's what he said. He used the word illusions. And he suggested that in the year 2015 and 2016, many people came with false hopes, which is true. A lot of people returned if they still had the resources to do so. People who had enough money to pay off the human traffickers very often were stranded here with worse lives than the ones that they had in their countries of origins. But some had the excess resources to make a return after all. The majority did not. They gave up a good life or a somewhat okayish life in the pursuit of an ultimately worse life here. But of course, that is rarely admitted. He kind of does it underhandedly here. What I want to point out here is the two topics that he is touching, and that is the language and the professional integration. Why is that important? These two are the only talking points we get whittled down to whenever the topic of integration is discussed. It is never about, would you please not chop off my head if you feel insulted for your religion, for example. That's never on the table. What's always discussed, and exclusively so, it's a stand in for everything that could go wrong with people coming here, is the language skills and the professional integration, as if there were no other topics. And thus, this myopic view is also represented in a statement by the vice speaker of the pseudo-libertarian party FDP, which I will read out to you. Stefan Thomé, that is the vice speaker of the parliamentarian group of the party in the federal parliament Bundestag. He said the Union and the Social Democrats, the Union is the party of Angela Merkel's, failed to present a comprehensive immigration law. So comprehensive is everything that takes into account all aspects of immigration, from asylum over professional specialists to integration. So here we have asylum, the specialists, some professional specialists, and they're coming here or wooing them here into the country. And this wake integration. And now I want to dive for a second into this professional specialist issue, because that is the latest let's say, sugar with which the general public shall be convinced that immigration is always a good idea. We were already told in 2015 that all these illiterates were professional specialists. And the problem is, we cannot even agree on what constitutes a specialist, largely due to feminism. We have now to dish out degrees to people who babysit, who make the beds for other people, who clean houses and stuff, and pretend that this is all of equal value, that all work is of equal value, because we do not want to hurt the precious narcissism of the ladies, and therefore, every work is the same. And when I read about specialists and professional specialists, more often than not, I see a picture of a woman who makes a bed. Okay, I do not regard this as specialism, and I'm not looking down to people who have just some ordinary professional background, some apprenticeship, or hardly college education or no college education. This is not my point. But if we are wooed into accepting people from outside, we kind of have to agree what constitutes a specialization and what doesn't. Then the second problem is the cultural aspect, the extra effort to go into a different country, to learn a different language in order to integrate into society. They tend to be very good people, but their children and grandchildren can be lame, okay? And what we have seen in the past decades, and that's also true for America, by the way, is that a lot of those millennials now, they are terribly outspoken. I mean, they are bossing everybody around, and this is really hard to swallow if you have a woman in headscarf to teach you about democracy and what constitutes racism. Your average citizen cannot hear this or entertain this forever, because you kind of see the gaps of the accusers. You're watching the preacher, right? So then there is the major point for me. We actually do not want that competition. Even the specialists. Usually you would think, okay, maybe if you're an academic, your job is fine anyway. You make good money. You can take some pressure on your wage bargaining power. Wrong, because those doctors, engineers, etc., they have gone through a long period of education in order to get a bit more income, and it's also whittled down with all these taxes and mandatory fees. And they need to have an incentive to study in the first place. I mean, we have now reached this point where we see a large deindustrialization of the country. There are places like the Lausitz that stop coal mining without any replacement, and it's just brushed aside by the media as a structural change in the economy. But effectively, the coal mines are just closed down, and they are throwing money at it. Like, any problem just goes away if you supposedly just redistribute the money. And this, of course, leads to an entire region to be deindustrialized. Plus, we have a war on the cars. I would actually love to make a video series about that, because it's a long story. Our entire car manufacturing industry, for which our country is famous for, is under attack right now. We have exploding energy prices. It's insane. They are exploding. We have the highest energy prices in the world even right now. So facing a deindustrialization, even though and a potential job loss, even though they have went under a grueling education regime. Mechanical engineers are losing their jobs in droves right now, And Stefan Seibers Stefan Seibert, the press secretary, still says we are just in a competition for ever more people from highly specialized fields, and you do not actually want these people to be to see their salaries plummet. If you think you can replace some homegrown engineers and doctors and so forth with foreigners, you kind of ignore that they might want to return. You do change the country and leave your family. I mean, it's not just your country, it's not just your language. What you actually leave is basically everybody you grew up with. That's quite a sacrifice, right? And many of these people from China, India, and so on, they actually do want to return at some point. They don't have the same interest in building up the nation for the future generations as somebody who's willing to raise his children in this place. And this is egregiously ignored. And while we are clamoring for competition, like Stefan Seibert, we completely ignore that there is actually something like a free market. If your corporation wants this or that a workforce, he can just provide for a better education or for a train of courses for his staff, and he can raise the salaries. That's how you handle it in a free market society. And what this reflects this, we are lacking specialists, professional specialists, and we have to take in more of them, is a socialist understanding of how the economy works. Our corporatists in all these chambers and what I call guilds, because I think it's medieval, the chambers and associations, they are saying, well, we are lacking, let's say, 300 dentists in Bavaria or whatever, and it seems to be the job of the government to allot the resources, like the engineers, the doctors, the dentists, to the places where they are missing. That's not how an economy works. The allocation of resources is actually done by the market. If you think it's the responsibility of the state to match the demand and the supply, you have completely lost the ground of a prosperous society. Now, this word competition, as Stefan Seibert is using it, has been used in the past as a rhetorical device to make the wider public swallow bitter pills while blaming conservatives at the same time, and capitalism, of course. It is always this: if you don't do this, other people will get all the good stuff. So in this case, it would be if we are not more amenable to immigrants, they will all go to Great Britain, they will all go to France and so forth, and then the best of the best don't come here anymore. We have had this same device, a rhetorical device for taxes, for whatever. You can't have that, because if we do something, those who take the short stick will choose a different country. It's always this competition of countries just pulled out of the pocket as a menace to get the population in line. So it has a double effect. At the same time, it smears competition and conservatives, and also it makes the population accept that the government only presents one alternative, and we don't have an open discussion with many parties giving their suggestions for the problem or its solution. Do we consider the actual competition between the countries, and you don't just use that as a stylistic device. You must take into account of what is actually going on, and that is, we do take in illiterates claiming they were specialists, while those with higher degrees are leaving the country. And this is evident in a new study, or it's rather a policy brief of the Federal Institute for Population Research, which was published in December 2019. The German name is Bundesinstitut für Bevölkerungsforschung. And it says that of the emigrants, those who leave the country right now, 76% are academics, of which 16% hold a bachelor degree, 46% a master's degree, and another 13% are even doctors. The others are diplomas and some, I don't know, certificates that I don't know right now. But anyway, 13% doctors and 46% of master degrees suggest that this is not your gender study major. This is people who see an option to jump ship. They are going. 76% of academics is vastly above the general average of academics, which in the public is the wider public is only 25%. In the last decades, 1.8 million Germans have left their countries, their home country, to live in Switzerland, America, Great Britain, and so forth. So they want people to move more, and they suggest that the welfare should be accessible from all different countries and so forth. And they mention that 45 million people with citizenships of the 36 OECD countries are already living outside of their country of origin. And this touches what I have noticed many years ago already. Whenever you read an advisory book on applications for jobs, in job interviews and stuff, you will always find that they suggest you go outside the country at some point and at least stay for a year. So there is something more than a necessity. What is underlying all of this, and also the current immigration crisis, is a cult. It's truly a religion. Moving homes is supposed to make you a superior human being. You're suddenly more sophisticated, open-minded. You reach a higher level of spirituality simply by moving homes. It is ludicrous. But that has been going on for many, many years, and the immigration influx that we see right now is a result of that, at least here in Central Europe. That was used to make people move their homes in the first place. And also, that's a bit of a marketing gag, isn't it? Oh, everybody has done it, so, half Africa can also come. And one tool is a student exchange program by the EU, which is called Erasmus. It also it does not only allow students from the EU member states to change universities more easily, or it helps with the organization. It's also that this program includes, I think, South Africa. At least it does include Turkey, so it's not restricted to EU countries. And of course, the idea really is to make everybody restless. That's the idea. We have all become vagabonds, and us that it is not okay to discourage our own people from studying while getting the supposed brain forces from outside. Jürgen Rüttgers of the party, the Union, which is Angela Merkel's party, had won an election campaign for prime ministership in North Rhine-Westphalia in the year 2005 with the slogan Kinder statt Inder, which translates as rather kids than Indians. At the time, it was already, bemoaned as racist and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, people could still say these things. Okay, it was largely accepted that it's okay, not by the media and not by the NGOs and so on, but the wider public was accepting of it, and he ultimately won. He won because of that slogan that people felt their own offspring is neglected. They are discouraged to even have children. And when they get them, they are receiving very poor education and ultimately are facing stiff competition that hardly makes any payoff for the sacrifices that they have undergone during their grueling education. And the German education is very long and very grueling because it's stuffed and overloaded with Marxist leftist ideology. That was it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.